What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Beyond the Junkyard podcast. I am your host, Junkyard James, and with me, as always, is the man, the myth, the legend, Cody Marinera. How are you doing, my friend?
I need you to send me the file of our opening theme song. I just rock out to it. It's a great song. Um,
I got, I got you.
well,
I got you.
I learned a. Go ahead. Thank you. Um, I learned a hard lesson on Sunday. I guess it was Sunday. Yeah, Sunday. No, Saturday. Um, I learned that I'm a pansy, and that Darby Allin is a much tougher of a person than I am. Um, I learned pretty quickly when you go one on one with glass wins. Um, I sliced my hand on a mirror Saturday and ended up with this lovely contraption on my finger. Um, Thought I had to get stitches. I was very nervous about that. Um, but no, I got a lovely tetanus shot because I was 3 years overdue. Um, and no stitches, but a little splint and something to keep the finger straight while the wound closes. Um, so yeah, that was not a fun trip to the ER on Saturday, but all was all right. Other than that, we're here, and yeah, how are you doing, sir?
Yeah, no, I'm doing well. It is the last day I got to work this week. Uh, thank Jesus, both figuratively and literally, for me having the day off tomorrow. Um, but no, I'm doing well. It is a good day. We get to talk pro wrestling a little bit, and we got uh we got some big news to talk about on the show today. But before we get into that, let's get into all of the razzle dazzle of some of the um, housekeeping, I guess you could say. That QR code that was just posted on the top left hand corner of the screen, go ahead and use that QR code. That is your way to join our Dis- Discord server, the real wrestling community, and we can talk live during next weekend's Dynasty pay-per-view there on the Discord server. That's the real wrestling community. We're starting it up. Go ahead and scan that QR code. And as always, a big thank you to our sponsor, Dubby Energy. Go ahead and use the code Beyond the Yard at checkout w.gg to save 10% off of your order. Dubby Energy, I'm drinking it now. It is the best alternative energy source that you can buy. They just came out with, and let me tell you, they're coming out with some good flavors. They just came out with sour gummy bear flavored energy drink mix, and I might have to cop me one of those and see how it tastes. All the other flavors I have been pretty good, and it's pretty easy. All you do, get you a glass of water, take that scoop, pour one scoop into the water, mix it up, and it's your energy drink of the day. Natural caffeine, crash free, none of the other additives that all the other big energy companies use. And thank you for supporting us. Go to w.gg, and again, that code is Beyond the Yard at checkout. Save you 10% on your order. the other usual stuff, like, comment, share, and let's get going. No real big sports news today, so there ain't a lot to talk there. Oh, well, one big thing that happened after I created this rundown, I guess. We'll briefly talk about it. How does Kirk Cousins' agent make him all this money?
I don't know. Uh, I, I wish I had Kirk Cousins' agent for anything I do. Um, yeah, that man has got to be the single best agent in sports history with the amount of guaranteed money that Kirk Cousins continuously has received and seems to find him within every few years whenever Kirk goes to sign with a different team. Always has guaranteed money. I mean, it is absolutely insane. Kudos to Kirk and his agent, but man, that's easy.
Yeah, I think I saw a stat that it's been, or this year will be the 11th consecutive year Kirk Cousins has a contract that's fully guaranteed. So hey, kudos to his agency. I hope he gets a nice fat percentage of Kirk Cousins' contract, because he's putting in big work to get him all that guaranteed money. And hey, Kirk, if you ever just randomly just leave a bag of cash sitting in Charlotte, North Carolina, just let me know and I'll find it for you. Um, but yeah, other than that, not a whole lot of sports news going around town today. Some NHL teams are possibly making it to the playoff, or locking a playoff berth today. I think the Hurricanes can clinch today. The Sabres can clinch today. But we'll get into some of that stuff, I guess, once it happens. We'll start this show, though, with everybody's favorite segment, and that is the mid-card meltdown. And was there anything, I guess, other than slicing your finger, that grinded your gears this past week?
Glass grinded my gears for sure. Um, I don't really. Mm, I think the only thing that really would grind my gears that I can think of is what there are some things that remind me AEW wise to some of the good old days from the WCW and a little bit from the WWE. And then there's some things that I'm just like, man, that's like a maybe not a early to mid 2000s WCW decision, but like a late 2000s WCW decision. And last night's show I thought was just kind of odd. There was only a few matches. Most of them went pretty long. Some of the segments were okay, but it's like I don't know. I didn't really care for the whole Speedball Bailey kind of being in the main event type of thing. I was just like, really, dude? Like,
yeah,
I don't really see him as a main event type of guy. Kudos to him for getting it, but I saw. I think there was a video that got made the rounds this past week of a past vlog that Speedball did about how I guess he was banned from the United States and got it back, and it was like a good comeback story type of thing. And a lot of people were saying like, Mike Bailey and Veda Scott are what's great about wrestling. We need more people like them in wrestling, to which I would vehemently disagree. We do not need more of those people in wrestling. Speedball Bailey is a very unique talent. He does have talent. He's very unique. Awful on the promo. Dude has got such a weird voice. He doesn't need to talk a whole lot. But his Karate Kid type of look and presentation, his martial arts background infused with the wrestling is cool. It's unique, and I appreciate it, and I'm entertained by it. But Veda Scott to me is one of the most repulsive people in wrestling. Personal opinion. And Speedball Bailey, of course, being married to her automatically makes me not really a big fan of Speedball Bailey, but yeah, I guess if you really did your research as to why maybe I don't like Speedball Bailey and Vince Scott, you could probably say, oh, it's because you are maybe one side of a particular aisle, and that may be true in some perspectives, but it's the fact of how outlandish things like that can be. I really didn't mean for that to be kind of like my mid-card meltdown. I'm not going to lie to you. There's only really 1.5 real things that kind of grinded my gears. The half, I would say, is AEW continuously booking 20,000-seat arenas and filling not much of it. Last night for Dynamite, they were at the Winnipeg Jets home arena. And on camera, it looked great because of the way that they're able to manipulate the way that it looks. They did have a good crowd, over 4,500, which is great for a Dynamite. But when you're in a 10,000-seat arena, that's that's like 40% filled. But again, when you're able to kind of manipulate it on camera, it doesn't look too bad. Dynamite next week in Edmonton is the home of the Oilers, another 20,000-seat arena. I think they've only sold 3,000 tickets for it. They may get to 4,000 by showtime. It's just not a good look. And then Dynasty, a week from Sunday. It's in Vancouver, home of the Canucks, another 20,000-seat arena. Very good crowd will be there. I don't know if they're going to get 10,000. They're going to get probably between 8,000 and 10,000 by showtime. The entire lower bowl is going to be full. That looks great. But when it's a pay-per-view and you don't have one single upper deck ticket not only sold but available, I don't love that. I'm not saying AEW doesn't need to go to Canada. They absolutely do. I just hate the fact that we still have these problems of we go to Los Angeles, 13,000 people, full packed house. Most of the AEW pay-per-views do that. Double or Nothing next month is going to be at not Arthur Ashe, but a different Louis Armstrong Stadium. I think they're going to have about 14,000 people for that. It's going to be a sold-out arena. It's going to be packed. But it's like, it's just a little bit of a blimp of, man, I hate the fact that we're booking 20,000-seat arenas for pay-per-views, and we're still not even getting little over half the arena full. I said that was half my grind of the years. I'm not going to spend as much time with the other one, but it's the one that really got me stirred up was, pardon me for honestly not remembering his name, but is it Jaden Ivey for the Bulls?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's all that needs to be said is the hypocrisy and the two-facedness and the contradictory of professional sports is pathetic. It's evil. It's ridiculous. Black voices are great to be heard, except when you have one opinion, and that opinion is apparently wrong. And how that's not receiving some sort of uproar more is ridiculous. Yeah. I'm all about people having their personal opinions when they're not on the court, in the ring, on their team. When you're on your own, away from practice, away from the game, in your car, doing a live stream, posting on your social media, away from the court, away from the field, away from the ring, do you. Brody King, do whatever you want to do. Jaden Ivey, do whatever you want to do. And the fact that we have somebody that got fired for speaking about their opinion and their belief, not during a game, not on the court, not at practice, not at a press conference, is very, very, very pathetic, ridiculous, and shows the hypocrisy and the scheming and scamming that professional sports is. It's ridiculous. And I'll leave it at that.
No, I feel you. How do I beat that for a mid-card meltdown?
Had to steal your thunder for 1 week.
I think for me, So there's a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about in the wrestling news section of this show that I'll leave my conversation there. But for something that kind of um, grinded my gears a little bit in pro wrestling, it's these people who are former wrestlers trying to tell new wrestlers what is okay and what's not okay to do in a wrestling ring. I'm not sure if you saw the botch on Monday night before EO Sky. If you haven't, she about broke her neck, probably
Oh,
about
how
killed
she
herself.
didn't.
Yeah. Um, and it's a serious injury, and it is a botch, and that's why I've always said pro wrestling and pro wrestlers have to always assume the worst, assume there is a risk every time they step into the ring. But for, I can't remember who started it. I think it's one of the trainers for Evolve and WWE ID and all of that people tried to come out here and say, that's why I tell all these people, don't do those daredevil moves. No one's going to remember them in the long term, and you don't want to risk your health or something like that. As if every time I read one of those kind of comments, because we see them a lot, and it's usually aimed at AEW wrestlers because they usually get more leeway with what they can do in the ring. And it's always like, keep it safe, do this, do that. You want to protect your long-term health. You want to do this, you want to do that. Hulk Hogan's finishing move was a leg drop, and the man could barely walk by the time he ended up dying. He had multiple knee surgeries and hip surgeries and back issues because of a leg drop. Wrestling progresses. It gets more athletic, just like every other sport. And so I hate it. It's one of my pet peeves when I see these old motherfuckers come on, use their social media platform and try to tell this new generation, just do it like I did it. Because, like, that's not going to get you anywhere. You're not, if you can't differentiate yourself from the rest of the pack, you're not going to get anywhere in pro wrestling. I mean, it sucks that we have people like Will Ospreay having to have major neck surgery so early in his career. But I think if you were to ask Will Ospreay, would you stop wrestling the way that you do to prevent these injuries? I think he would say no, he would do it the same way, because that's just who Will Ospreay is. He loves to wrestle. He loves to entertain the crowd. So I think that's what grinded my gears the most, is the fact that these old heads think they're still relevant enough to tell these new people who are the most popular wrestlers in the world and the most popular time of pro wrestling in the past decade and a half, maybe. I don't know. It irks me a little bit. Like, times change. Wrestling has to evolve. And so it's no longer necessarily about the illusion of the act and more about the athleticism. Just like, 70 years ago, you weren't throwing the football in the NFL. It was a running sport. Now it's both. Now you have, you know, players that can do both. You have players playing offense and defense again. Like, that used to be every player would play offense and defense and special teams. And now we're starting to revert back there. It kind of disappeared, and now Just the athleticism of every sport changes. You know, the NBA, they used to not have a 3-point line, and now I think it's either the NBA or the WNBA. I can't remember. They're considering instituting a 4-point line because these players can shoot the basketball from outrageous distances now and be really accurate with it. So sports evolve. Baseball has evolved, probably the slowest of all the other sports, but baseball is now slowly evolving. So that's my big rant. So yeah.
Yeah, and what's crazy about it is if you look at some of the statistics that came out over the last weekend for opening weekend for baseball, some of their biggest numbers that they've drew for primetime games, national televised games, regional sports, networks are up as well. And overall, obviously the attendance is up. It's opening week. Fans are excited, and especially coming off the momentum from the World Baseball Classic, it's a great time for the MLB right now. But it's a pivotal moment because by the end of the year, we could be in a lockout and potentially face a shortened or no season at all next year. So I hope the MLPA, MLBPA, and the brass at the top of the commission board of the MLB take a lot of notice and just really start getting knee deep in these negotiations as soon as possible, because ride the wave of momentum, man. It'll lead you to great places and great heights. And right now, baseball, with the addition of the ABS challenge, which to me is fantastic. I'm glad it's in there.
You know who hates it? You know who hates that?
CB Buckner.
CB Buckner. Good God, he's awful.
He got hit in the face with a pitch from a foul ball yesterday. Kind of deserved. Hate to say that, but man, when you miss strikes and balls is one thing, but when you miss a clear, safe call,
yeah,
because you weren't even looking at the play, my man, you need to go. But yeah, they need to get into negotiations pretty quickly and make sure that we don't have a lockout at all next year. But to spin it back to wrestling, just to make a quick final point, I need to remember who said it, when, and where. The quote kind of, or the, I don't remember the exact quote, but I'm trying to summarize it. I need to remember where it came from and where I looked it up at. But basically, it was a top wrestler, and it probably was WWE, but I'm not 100% sure, that was talking to, I don't remember the wrestlers, but to a compare. It's not the exact, but it's almost like a Undertaker to a Rob Van Dam type of people. It wasn't these two, but it was like that, where Taker, obvious main event guy, top player for years and years. Rob Van Dam, a fan favorite, elevating to the main event spot, but not quite there yet. It was that level of talent. And somebody like an RVD, like a Will Ospreay, goes out and does these moves almost every week to entertain the fans, give them what they paid for, but just does it a lot on weekly television. And this top level is like, dude, listen, you need to save some of this stuff for pay-per-views. I understand you want to give the fans a great show, and you absolutely can do that, but wait until, don't give them everything. Give them a good scale-back version of that. Leave them wanting more so that they will pay to watch you on pay-per-view. So that way they will watch our product and pay the 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks for the pay-per-view, spend a little bit more money at the box office to buy the ticket to watch you. You're going to make more money. We're going to make more money. The fans are going to enjoy it and want to come out and see you more and watch our product more. Don't show them everything you got on a Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Thursday. Give them a taste of it. Leave them wanting more. Show what you can do more on a Sunday or Saturday. So, yes, I do agree. I hope that more people take that advice.
Yeah, I can agree partially with that. Like Kenny Omega shouldn't spam the one-winged angel on a Dynamite. It makes like I talked about last week on the monologue segment. Like it makes the pay-per-view less special if you have, they probably shouldn't be spamming 2.9 counts on a Wednesday. Like that's just not the point of the match on the weekly television. That those matches should get you to the pay-per-view. So I can agree to some extent on that. But to completely whitewash the game back to how it was in the 80s, and you can win, you win off a chokehold or whatnot. Like, I don't think it's fair for these old heads to try and go back to the good old days, I guess you could say, in that way. All right, let's jump into some of these big talking points this week. And you know WrestleMania tickets are not selling when you have to call a man who is just 4 months or so, 3 months or so into his retirement, and say, John, we need you to come back, and we need you to be the host of WrestleMania. That's right, John Cena will be in Vegas to be the official WrestleMania host. Is I guess the question, one, will this change the game? Will people buy the tickets to see John Cena for like 30 seconds at the beginning of the show, and then maybe 10 seconds in the middle of the show? And then secondly, is this WWE's way of saying, we concede, guys, we're not as popular as we thought we were. This is a bad decision going back to Vegas a second year and charging these astronomical prices. Like, even Cody Rhodes the other day had to be like, hey, this $10,000 bus ride you're letting people buy, like, that's probably a bit too pricey. We're going to have to give them something special, like really special, for this $10,000 bus ride on Cody Rhodes' bus. What do you take of John Cena coming back to the WWE?
It's absolutely indicative of where the product is and how bad the ticket sales are. As of, like, I want to say 3 or 4 days ago, according to WrestleTix, both shows hadn't even sold 40,000 tickets yet for either night, and we're less than 3 weeks away. And that is insane to think about when you compare the last 10 years of WrestleMania to not hit a 40,000 plateau this late in the game for either night is scary. Now, I'm sure Sunday has now hit that mark. They were at 39,000, so they were close. And then the other night, Saturday night, was like 37, 38,000. So I'm sure they're going to get a good little late push here for tickets. Probably get, but they're not going to get 60,000 each night like they did last year. They may not even get 50,000 each night. They'd be lucky to get 50,000 for one night at this point. But no, it's an indicative of the ticket prices, of the product not being as good as it was previously. Build has not been as strong. Yeah, and it's kind of WWE's last little push to say, man, we really got to do something here to get people to buy these tickets, and that's a good way to do it. Now, I do have an interesting question, completely separate from this topic, but it brings it up. Why is, first of all, we all know I'm a mark for AJ Styles, have been since maybe 2006. Why is AJ Styles getting in the Hall of Fame before John Cena?
We were talking about this, me and another guy and another wrestling server that I'm in. I think WWE gave AJ Styles the Hall of Fame nod to keep him in WWE. I think AJ was wanting to leave and maybe go to AEW, and WWE wanted him to be the trainer role that they've put him in, and WWE said, we'll put you in the Hall of Fame. We'll give you what you want there. We'll give you your time. You're in. You'll be the, I guess he's the headliner. I wouldn't say Stephanie McMahon's the headliner there. Or I wouldn't say, was it Demolition? Or one of those old tag teams
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't think they would be the headliner there. So I would assume AJ would be considered the headliner. Um, I think it'll be like, hey, AJ, we'll put you in the Hall of Fame. You'll get your headline spot if you stay. I think that was the only play because I really do think AJ had one foot out the door and was about to go elsewhere. And
It's a good point. Now, how upset would you be? You've been a much bigger Cena fan than I have, at least for sure over the last 10 years. I think I was a really big Cena fan from 04 to 08. And then
yep,
obviously I kind of became more of a Cena hater up until the last 4 or 5 years when I was finally starting to realize, you don't know what you got until it's about to be gone.
right.
Cena headlining the Hall of Fame next year in Saudi Arabia? No way, right?
No, I would hope not. You
I
know,
would hope not too. I kind of hope they skip the Hall of Fame next year because it's not on American soil.
yeah. I just wonder if what WWE is going to do in regards to that Saudi show and with the foreign policy mess that's going on in that area, because like you would think the anticipation is that this situation in Iran is finished before WrestleMania in 2027, but there is no guarantee that it will be. And I just this is why I always thought take Saudi Arabia out of it. You go to some other country, there's always a risk associated with scheduling that event. Um, and so, yeah, I don't think it would be fair. I think, look, John Cena got shafted on his retirement. I think Goldberg got shafted on his retirement. They've done just a really bad job, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in depth. But I do think that sort of had a play in why Chris Jericho came back to AEW. Because he saw, well, Goldberg got shafted. Um, Rey Mysterio's about to get shafted, though he's injured, so he might not really get a retirement run. Um, AJ Styles didn't really get the greatest retirement run, though that's kind of on him for kind of throwing it last minute to the WWE. Like, this is where I want to retire. He didn't really give him a whole lot of time, but even still, they had enough time to do something big for him. And same thing with Cena. Um, so, and it would suck if John Cena main evented the Hall of Fame in Saudi Arabia. Like who, because they would have to make it culturally appropriate. Like you're not putting some like mainstream female talent in the Hall of Fame in Saudi Arabia. What, you're going to put Mustafa Ali in the Hall of Fame just to please the Saudi fans? Like, I don't know. There's really nobody outside of Cena that you could think next year to get it, and that's just he's drawing a shorthand on the stick, and it feels like they're kind of at the. Doesn't it not feel like this is Triple H once again burying John Cena?
I mean, it's hard not to see that, but it's at the same time, it's like Triple H has been in the Hall of Fame what, three times,
Right.
right? He went in by himself, right? I know he's
Yep.
went in with DX and with Evolution. I believe it was with Evolution, right? So yeah, three times. Yeah, I don't know. I think that in a way, a lot of people are upset for the fact that WrestleMania is even going to Saudi Arabia
Mm-hmm.
before like a London or something like that, which I 100% agree with. But when a country throws that kind of money at you, you're pretty much going to do whatever they ask you to.
Yeah. Well, Yeah. I mean, I have friends that are upset that WrestleMania is leaving the United States. Like when you think of WrestleMania, you think of that is what makes America, like that's American pro wrestling. It would be almost the equivalent in some people's eyes of taking Wrestle Kingdom out of the Tokyo Dome. You know, like Wrestle Kingdom is the Tokyo Dome, and WrestleMania is America. And so even if they moved it to London, I think there would be some fans that would not necessarily be too thrilled. But I don't know. But
Yeah, it's a
yeah.
tough one. It's a tough one.
But yeah, no, I mean, back to where we started. Uh, WrestleMania is in trouble. You know, was it? Which one was it 19 where they had to comp all of those tickets in St. Louis? Was that WrestleMania 19?
Um, from what, and I think Meltzer had made a point about this on one of his shows, and he had said Cleveland. First of all,
Oh,
Cleveland has never hosted a WrestleMania. St. Louis has not either. I, I believe the one that they are referring to was WrestleMania 8 in Indianapolis.
okay.
They had quite a few comp tickets, I think. Um, and I'm sure every WrestleMania has had some sort of comp tickets to begin with, but um, I haven't heard so much about 19. Now, I mean, I haven't really followed too much up with it. I just know that Meltzer made a point about it, and the one that some people were referring to was WrestleMania 8 in Indianapolis. If there's others, I just haven't really paid too much attention to it. But um, yeah, I, I tell you what, I remember a few years ago when Double or Nothing had basically was in Las Vegas every year, and they were kind of going back and forth between T-Mobile Arena and the MGM Garden Arena. And at some points, a couple of weeks leading up to the pay per view, you would go to a restaurant and they would be like, "Hey, if you order this, you can get 2 for 1 AEW Double or Nothing tickets."
Right.
Some people did get quite a few comps. If you stayed at a certain hotel, you could get free tickets or severely discounted tickets. I think the same's going to be pretty true. I think there's going to be a lot of comp tickets. I think there's going to be a lot of buy four for the price of two, for the price of one. Um, buy two, get two free. Or like at some of these residencies and hotels and casinos and restaurants. If you stay here, if you book a reservation here, you have a chance to get some free tickets or
Right.
severely discounted tickets. I think they're going to try to pull as much strings as they can to try to fill up Allegiant Stadium for both nights again. Like I said, if they sell 50,000 tickets for either night, I'd be surprised at this point
Mm-hmm.
of how close we are to the event.
Yeah, I mean, but when you get the product that WWE is feeding you, I think this is the result that you get. So we shall see how it goes, and let's move on. All right, we'll jump into AEW here for a moment. We got another wrestler complaining about TV time. This time it's Mr. Willie Mack, which I really like as a wrestler. He had a really good run in TNA. He's complaining about, or he put a post out on social media saying that because of his lack of TV time, he may end up homeless, and basically Tony Khan won't put him on TV for whatever reason. Fightful and Sean Ross Sapp eventually came out with a follow up to that, which said that at one point in time, Willie Mack was put on a guaranteed yearly salary, but at some point in time, Tony Khan had changed his contract to do Willie Mack being paid on a per appearance bonus contract, so he only gets paid per every time he shows up on TV. My question is kind of not necessarily to Willie Mack in general, but to pro AEW kind of broadly and how deep their roster is. 4 hours of weekly television is not enough time to showcase every single person on this roster. And I think at some point in time, we're going to get more people complaining about their lack of time on TV. I think at some point, Lady Frost in the past couple of days had said some stuff about, she's ready, but she hasn't been used. And then she became a free agent, and then MLW signed her like 2 days later. And so, and then there's others like Deonna Purrazzo who have been kind of grievanced about their lack of TV time. I guess the question has to be, do these wrestlers have a point? Like, should they be using more of the talent than they are? Or maybe is the issue not necessarily how they're using talent, but the fact that maybe AEW needs to bring back, say, Rampage or Dark or Elevation, to give TV time to some of these people and make more time available each week. I think, like, AEW Dark, I don't know why they got rid of it. Like, it was a very big thing on YouTube, and a lot of people watched it, and a lot of people want it back. I think this would be a great time for Dark to make its weekly return. I think people would eat it up, and you can showcase some of these newer talents and get them exposed to the AEW ecosystem before, like, randomly throwing them on a Dynamite or a Collision. What say you, my friend?
It's a it's a slippery slope, right? Um, Sorry. On one hand, I do agree that 4 hours of network TV time is not enough to get as deep of a roster as AEW has out there. Um, Another hour for Rampage would be cool. An hour and a half, hour 15. If it's solely a YouTube channel, you don't have to do the commercial breaks to fill in the gaps, but you could do an hour 15, hour 30 show every week and do Dark. That'd be great. Um, I think that another avenue is that they have ROH. Now, I don't have Honor Club, but I would assume that ROH TV is what, around an hour per week? Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's right about an hour.
I believe so, yes.
So there's another avenue there that some of these people should be able to do is go down to ROH, and it's work at least. And at the very least, you can mold your craft a little bit better, work on some things, work on a character, get over a little bit more. I know that they're doing tapings at this studio in Jacksonville in front of 14 people. But it's still a crowd. And the great thing is that they did announce that the Supercard of Honor will be in May in Maryland. So another pay-per-view is on the horizon for ROH, which is good. But it'd be great if ROH had a TV deal too. And you could do 2 hours of ROH and put a bunch of talent down there and get over as well. And I know that I'm sure Tony Khan was in a bunch of negotiations to try to get ROH on TV, and it just hasn't worked out. But that's why I say you need to get rid of Honor Club and just stream it to YouTube and just put ROH on a MyAEW thing for the international people in the U.S. Sell the pay-per-views on Fight or Prime and HBO Max or whatever, but do it at like $15 to $20. It's ROH. It's not the AEW product. But get more eyes on the product. At the same time, though, if you're not using them at all, even on pre-match or pre-show matches, true Dark matches before Dynamite and Collision. And if you're not going to bring back Dark, you're not going to bring back Rampage, you're not going to put ROH on YouTube or network television, and you're not using these guys and gals, man, just cut them. Just let them go. Let them find work elsewhere. Indie shows can only work for so long because you're still under contract with them, so you're not going to work a whole lot of dates.
Right.
Let them go. MLW, Maple Leaf Pro, UK, Europe, Impact. WWE, there's still quite a few companies out there that could still sign these people, let them find work if you're just not going to use them at all.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with that to some extent. I do think like AEW's contracts are very like receptive to talent being able to work extra dates with indie promotions. I mean, good Lord, Mercedes Moné just ran the gauntlet of indie promotions the last couple of weeks. And so in some aspect, if you know, well, hey, they're not using me, I mean, I would fill up my dates. Like, hey, you're not using me. I'm going to get bookings from other indie shows. And if you decide that you need me at some point, then I'll let you know when I have an empty date in my schedule that I can work. Uh, I think you have to put the onus back on some of these talents because it's not like WWE where they have to approve your work schedule as like a WWE ID talent. Um, uh, as far as I'm aware, Tony Khan allows these people to kind of fill their dates as long as it's not interfering with their schedule in AEW. And so if but I do agree, if Tony Khan has no intent of using a talent, unless it's a big name like a Britt Baker, I can understand why he wouldn't let Britt Baker just leave. Because I think he would rather pay her and not have her work in WWE than to let her go and make big money for WWE and then WWE's taking fans from the off taking eyes off of AEW's product, um, potentially. But if it's someone like a Willie Mack or something like that, like dude, go find indie dates and hey Tony, if you're not going to use them, like release them. So, I'd or at least maybe give them an avenue. Like I think Willie Mack's style, and I don't know how well you know Willie Mack, like he would work, I think, really well in CMLL. So like use your partnerships in that way. If you're not going to use them, maybe New Japan or maybe CMLL or maybe Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. Who, by the way, they got a Canadian TV deal. So, congrats to them.
Big time TV deal too.
So TNA thought they were playing for second place. They're actually playing for third place with Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling because
Play for fourth place at this point.
Yep. So hey, I don't know. I could see it both ways. I think Tony Khan maybe has the responsibility of letting people go if he's not going to use them, but also at the same hand, if you're getting a paycheck or a potential appearance check from AEW and they're not using you, like the responsibility is for you to find work. And if you don't want to find work, then I don't feel like you can really complain about not making money in pro wrestling. Like that's your responsibility there. Oh goodness, this next topic is kind of dirty. All right, we'll go back to the WWE here. All right, so Janel Grant is back in the news again because she dropped a nuclear bomb on Vince McMahon's appeal. I think the idea was Vince McMahon's side is asking for a motion to move the case to arbitration. And so now Janel Grant has filed more documents basically saying, hey, no, this shouldn't go to arbitration. Like, the people need to hear what's going on. We got a lot of evidence here against you. And that's what Vince McMahon essentially wants, is not to let all of this go public. What we do know from this information that Janel Grant dropped is pretty big. she was requesting that she be allowed the opportunity. I'm reading from a Sports Illustrated article here. The opportunity to present her case in front of a judge. Part of the statements to the court included details regarding how and when Nick Khan became aware of what was happening. A quote, this was a quote from the court documents. Vince informed me, the being Janel Grant, that he had spoken privately with Nick Khan and Brad Bloom, which I'm not necessarily sure who that is, but Brad Bloom, during which he formally disclosed the sexual nature of his relationship with me. Vince told me he provided them with assurances about my loyalty, character, and I would never do anything to hurt WWE, and that I would sooner jump off the balcony than hurt anyone. He told me that with these assurances, Nick and Brad were ultimately supportive. It essentially basically said that WWE's general counsel, Brian Nurse, the top lawyer at WWE, was suspicious of the relationship. Brought it up in a meeting. Blah, blah, blah. And then eventually said Nick Khan basically ignored any mental and physical trauma that was experienced. There's a lot more in this. I'm just reading from what I can read off of the Sports Illustrated article, but this isn't good for Vince's side, especially with him requesting arbitration. At some point in time, I think the judge is going to say, no, this is going to court. What do you think?
Yeah, I think eventually it's going to have to come down to that. I think Vince is trying his hardest to just settle the case and be done with it. Janelle and her side is like, no. There's a lot more hard pieces of evidence here that need to be shown and need to be heard, and a fair trial needs to be had, and her side needs to be heard, and a lot of really bad stuff. Now, with mentioning Brad Bloom, he was the former WWE Chief Operating Officer from 2020 to 2024, and he resigned amid the scandal against Vince, the lawsuit against Vince. So there's your answer as to who Brad Bloom was. So yeah. And I think that says something there that Brad Bloom resigned when this whole thing kind of really hit the fan in 2024. That's not good either. So, yeah, quickly the deck is sort of stacking against Vince when it comes to this whole case, and I definitely think that we're gonna go to trial at some point, and a judge is really gonna hear the entirety of this whole thing, get all sorts of evidence that they can, Janelle's side of it's going to try to put as much evidence as they can, and they have. Yeah, and I think this case is very far from over.
Yeah, it's crazy. Another piece that I found that allegedly is part of these court documents. Janel Grant alleges that Brock Lesnar contacted her in December of 2021 under the nickname Polish Joe, with Vince McMahon reportedly instructing her to comply with his request and to give him whatever he wanted. She claims that Brock Lesnar sent unsolicited, explicit images while McMahon allegedly asked to see them in person. That's creepy. Grant alleges further that she felt pressured into sending content herself after repeated requests. The filing states also that plans were being made for an in-person encounter between Grant and Lesnar around a WWE event in early January 2022, with travel arrangements and hotel details discussed. Ultimately, the meeting did not happen due to a snowstorm, something she described as a relief after ongoing pressure and exchanges. With Brock being back in the company, this ain't what happens with him. Like, he's a big part of WrestleMania. He's fighting Obafemi.
Well, I think they're gonna get through WrestleMania, and then it just comes down to if the plan is for Brock to retire at SummerSlam. To all right, how quickly can we get this? How much can we stall that trial to where we can put Lesnar on TV, let him have his retirement match at SummerSlam, and at least have him be off TV and be done with him for a long time or a while.
Right.
And he needs to get brought into the case again. At least they can write him off TV for sure. Not have to worry about the whole retirement thing in Minneapolis at SummerSlam, and kind of be done with it from their perspective on the TV side of things. But that's between, it's 4 months between now and SummerSlam, and a lot can happen in 4 months, and some plans may need to change. I think they'll be able to get through WrestleMania for sure, and
Right.
I think it really depends on how internally the company feels
about it, right?
that they may push plans ahead and say, Brock, well, we're going to need you to have this retirement thing at WrestleMania because we're not sure what SummerSlam is going to look like. We don't know where you're going to be standing, and we may need to do this sooner. So it's going to be interesting in the next few, 3 weeks as we lead into WrestleMania, what happens with Obafemi. And of course, I think most fans would say that the preliminary plans are Gunther versus Lesnar at SummerSlam in presumably Lesnar's retirement match.
Right.
Does Gunther somehow get involved in this match? Does he attack Obafemi and he takes over Brock's spot? A lot of questions. We got 3 weeks, and I'm sure WWE internally is kind of scrambling as to, oh crap, this is not good. And I'm sure their legal team is probably trying to find out as much as they can so they can kind of really prepare themselves and be ready for anything if they need to pivot, if they need to make changes. Yeah, I think we're safe for SummerSlam. No, sorry, not. I don't want to use the word safe, but I think Brock will be able to be used up until WrestleMania, and I think it's just really going to be a real hairy situation up until we get to potentially SummerSlam. But just in general for the future of him, I mean, he's in the case. He's been mentioned plenty of times by Janel, and he's going to be a big part of this case as well.
Well, that's kind of the reason why when Brock made his first appearance in WWE back several months ago, why I said they should not have put him back on TV until this thing was settled. Because if this goes to trial and, all of the dirty laundry gets exposed, now you're in trouble. Because I believe they were there was some explanation that their legal team had cleared Brock. That Brock was cleared. So I don't think there's an issue. I think they're going to run full steam ahead with plans for Brock. I don't think they're going to pull him back off of TV because I do believe that the legal team they're running with the story that legal cleared him, that they didn't feel like there was any issue with Brock being on TV. If this goes to a trial, particularly quickly, and they start exposing some really big details that haven't come to light about Brock Lesnar, including up to releasing some of these alleged explicit photographs, like that could really pressure them to have to make really quick changes. And they would have to really give us an explanation as to why they cleared him, if there really is some a fear of some form of negligence. I think it's important though to say that this isn't a criminal case. This is just a civil case. And so, like, Brock isn't going to go to jail or Vince isn't going to go to jail. They're just trying to basically see how much Vince and the WWE and maybe Brock are liable for damages and some form of monetary payout to Janel Grant. So no, Brock isn't going to jail. No, Vince isn't going to jail. At least with this case, they'd have to bring a criminal case up and go through all of the information again if they wanted to press criminal charges. All right. Last big story back in AEW. I mentioned it at the top of the show, and it is the name of today's episode. AEW is the home of the, and I use this phrase kind of on purpose with the current events that are going on around the world. AEW is the home of the Ayatollah of ROCK&ROLLAH, Chris Jericho, made his return in his hometown of Winnipeg, Canada, last night. Hey, the Washington Capitals should learn to put a goalie in the net and stop letting the Devils score. But anyways, what are your thoughts on Chris Jericho and his return?
Well, first of all, we need to probably watch the last 6 games, even if we don't make the playoffs, because these could be the last 6 of Ovechkin being in a Capitals uniform. We'll see. I thought it was cool. It was a very, very different way to open Dynamite last night because obviously Shivani was in the ring with the table ready for the contract signing between Omega and MJF. And then the first little bit of pyro goes off, and I'm like, oh, all right, little mistake. We're fine. And then it happened again, and it was a little bit bigger. And then it happened, I think, a third time, and it was like the whole thing. And I'm like, all right, either there was a massive production miss here, somebody did not hit the pyro button right, they didn't fuel the stuff right, or what. And I'm like, man, that's a big blunder. And all of a sudden, you hear Judas, and then you see Jericho's name at the top, and I'm like, clever. Okay, that's a different way of coming back. That's a different way to do things. Kind of gave a little bit of 2012 Jericho when he returned to the WWE with a very awkward, weird, like him just kind of playing to the crowd, kind of going crazy, throwing him up, but only, I don't think he said anything on the mic in 2012. But at least he said a few words last night. It'll be interesting to see what he does, where he goes from here. Looks good. I think he looks pretty good. But yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Jericho from here on out. Nice way to bring him back. But definitely got me intrigued. It's like, all right, well, he interrupted the contract signing, so naturally that means for MJF for the world title or the Battle of Winnipeg with him and Omega again. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, so AEW starts, and I'm scrolling social media trying to get like it's 8 o'clock, turn on AEW tweet basically out. And so I hear Shivani's voice, and I'm like, damn it, Shivani, did you fuck up again? Like, did you jump your cue when the first blunder happened? And I think what sold it for me was Shivani seemed legitimately like confused as to why pyro was coming off. And then it happened again, and it was almost natural when Judas played. Like I don't know. I had anticipation, and I think I said it last week on the show that Chris Jericho, I almost felt like he was coming back last night, but I did not expect him to be the first thing on TV. And I think the Shivani and really the whole commentary team's reaction to Jericho was legitimate because according to Sean Ross Sapp and Fightful, Jericho did not show up to the building until 2 minutes before Dynamite. He showed up at 7:58, walked straight to Gorilla, and walked out. So I don't think anybody really knew, and Tony Khan has done a great job at doing that kind of thing. I don't think anybody really knew Jericho was coming back. And It's a great reunion back in his hometown of Winnipeg. My question is, what are they going to do with Jericho? Because I pray to God they don't put him in another faction again. I think if they just throw him into another faction, he already doesn't have the approval of like 75% of AEW fans. They all were fucking disappointed that he showed up last night. I was happy. I sung Judas really loud when he showed up. But I think Jericho needs to go on a solo run here, and this is his last run. And it maybe doesn't have to culminate in any form of championship, but let him have a good singles run and not have to like do whatever they've been doing with him the last couple times. And it's been about a year since we've seen Jericho, which I think is a good thing. We don't. He looked like he was in the best shape that I've ever seen him in quite some time last night. But the funny thing is, the Fozzy tour starts in about 3 or 4 weeks. So I don't know what they're going to do with Chris Jericho.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. They got new merch for him up on the website on Shop AEW, which I took a look at that today, and it's a different setup and different looking than it had been in the past. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I'm not real sure what they're going to do. In a way, I'm like, oh man, what if he says, I'm part of the Don Callis family and he goes with them? I could see that. I don't want that. I can't see him being a part of the Death Riders. To me, that just would be weird. Because I automatically kind of connect him to a faction. It's like, well, that's all he's kind of done in AEW, so surely he's going to be in a faction. But I guess that'll be the intrigue part, is to see what does happen with Jericho in the next little bit. I do agree though that he should be on a solo run. Seen enough of Jericho in a stable. Let him have one good little solid solo run, and let's see what the plans are for him.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to introduce a new segment to the show to end the show this week. And I got to be honest, I watch a podcast every week, a political podcast, and I stole this segment idea from this show. We're going to change it up just a bit, though. Obviously, it's not politics-based, but pro wrestling related here. It's called Buy, Sell, and Hold. Essentially, I'm going to give you some scenarios, and you got to say if you buy, meaning you agree with the scenario, you sell, meaning you disagree, or you hold, which means basically like you're indifferent. You don't see it one way or the other. But the caveat is, the assumption is if you hold, it is like the biggest sin you have ever committed. You should never hold. You should have an opinion on everything, stand 2 feet in the ground, and stand on business with your opinion here. And so if you hold...
So do I have to hold, or can I choose one or the other?
No, don't. No. You can hold if you want, but you don't have to. You should buy, or the idea is it makes it really fun to choose between buy or sell. So you have the option to hold if you really don't have an opinion one way or the other. But it's almost like killing the Pope if you hold. It's like the gravest of sins.
I didn't know if it was like, start, bench, fire, like you had to choose one, or if it was you can kind of do whatever.
Okay. No. You can buy all three. You can buy all three if you want. You can sell all three. You can hold on all three. Those are the rules. And so let's give you your first scenario. Okay. Speaking of Chris Jericho, buy, sell, or hold. Chris Jericho will win another AEW World Championship.
So, I think we've seen him with a good lengthy reign, and um, I think is he a 2-time champion? I don't remember if he's a 2-time world champion. I know he's 1 time, but
No, because he became the Nueve when he won the ROH belt, I think.
gotcha.
So
Yeah, I think we've seen enough of Jericho being a world champion in AEW. He may compete for the world title, but I don't think he will win another world title. So sell.
I'm with you. I'll sell that one as well. I think we will. We'll get another Jericho feud, and it might be the championship match at like Double or Nothing or whatnot. It might be Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho or something, but I don't think he'll win another one. I don't think he needs to win another one. I think his time as the top dog has sailed away. All right, second one. WWE will claim that WrestleMania has sold out this year, even if most of the tickets are comped.
That is a hard buy. That is an easy hard buy. WWE will inflate the absolute hell out of that number, and it will say they sold it out. They don't care if it's the catering people, the people that are outside of the stadium working as staff, parking attendants. They don't care. They will inflate that number as high as they possibly can, and they will somehow say that it's sold out in some way. I'm going by.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, they inflate the numbers even when they actually sell out arenas. So I am expecting it to be like, we have set a Las Vegas attendance record of 150,000 people or some bogus number that they will claim. And what their justification of it was like, yeah, we had an offsite party at the Sphere and we sold it out there too, or something like that. Like, they're going to claim some bogus number to try to get positive PR for this, because it has been a nightmare selling tickets. But WrestleTix will give you the actual number. So subscribe to them on Patreon, and you'll get the
Best
actual
few
number.
dollars in wrestling, baby.
Yes, sir. Last one. Buy, sell, or hold. We will see the DMD, Dr. Britt Baker, in AEW at some point this year.
Wow. And you can clip this, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm going sell. I don't think so. I think there's been plenty of opportunities for her to show up, and nothing has shown up. So I think we're at a point where we can pretty much say the ship has sailed. In my opinion, I'm going sell.
Yeah, I would probably have to sell it too, because like you said, they were in Pittsburgh and she didn't show up. They were in Jacksonville and she didn't show up. Every opportunity that made the most sense for her to show up, she didn't show up. And so, given her comments on how wrestling fans in general have kind of like basically made her had to quit dentistry, I think there's a bad taste in her mouth with the pro wrestling industry. Um, I'll put it this way: I think there's a better chance if she shows up anywhere it's NXT, not AEW. And so I'll put it that way. So I'll sell here. I don't know. I don't think we'll see her in AEW this year. Let us know, guys, if you're watching this, if you buy, sell, or hold on all three of those in the comments. And we'll go to our final thoughts. Anything that we didn't get to today that you just have to get off your mind before the end of the live stream?
Just to kind of put a final thought on the Britt Baker thing, I think a few weeks ago, somebody said, we miss you, we love you, when we seen you back in AEW, and she retweeted that and said it's not up to me. So clearly there's some sort of creative difference, or just a difference as a whole. with Britt and possibly Tony Khan, or just Britt and AEW in general. So, yeah. If you're a across the board sports fan like I am, you're pretty happy with the fact that CNC Chase Elliott won at Martinsville this past weekend, so that was pretty cool. And Bravos are off to a pretty good start. Commanders are releasing their new uniforms 2 weeks from yesterday, so we'll be anxious to see what that's going to look like. Manchester City won the Carabao Cup last week or week before that. That's pretty cool. Yeah. It's interesting how we're 3 weeks away from WrestleMania and just not exactly thrilled. I'll watch it. It's WrestleMania, but it's amazing how in 1 year, 2 years time, it went from being some of the most hyped WrestleManias of all time to not much buzz. And I think the product is suffering from it. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the remaining 3 weeks as we lead up to WrestleMania, 2 weeks, whatever it is, and see what happens with it. And yeah, I think. Also, put in the comments what you think I should name my wife and I's son. We had a 3D 4D ultrasound on Sunday, and Chase Elliott won, so I said that he needs to be called Clyde or Chase Elliott. That got shot down. We'll see. We still got a few months left, and a couple months left. It's crazy how quickly it's coming up, but
see,
yeah.
What you need to do is give her the ultimatum: Clyde or Chase, and then come up with some really outlandish name like Pikachu or something, and make her choose between Chase or Pikachu, and then she'll pick Chase, right?
That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is I'm outnumbered over here, so
that is fair.
It ain't gonna go very far.
that. Touche, my friend. Touche. Well, the Buffalo Sabres really shit the bed today. They had a chance to clinch a playoff berth for the first time in God knows how many years, and they ended up getting their ass kicked to the Ottawa Senators. So next game is the game, I guess, that Buffalo fans will sit there waiting for the first time in, 15 or 16 years? It's almost longer than the Bills
13, 14, 15, something like that.
Yeah. The Carolina Hurricanes won today and clinched a playoff berth. Do you watch Collision? Because I gotta spoil something that happened tonight. Collision ran tonight, by the way, if you didn't know.
Yeah, I did see that, and I was like, why is it running on a Thursday? And then I forgot that the Final Four is on Saturday. So
yeah, so you know how last night Willow Nightingale
had an open challenge, right?
Correct. The return,
I swear to God,
of
swear to God,
Hikaru Shida is back in AEW. I'm ecstatic. I just saw that scrolling through, trying to figure out if the Sabres won or not. So I'll have to watch that now.
Very nice.
Bobby Lashley showed up again, so there were rumors he was leaving AEW. So I guess they mended Fentus there. So by the way, if you haven't watched Collision, you get to see Hikaru Shida again. So go ahead and tune in to watch it on the replay. But I'll turn it back over to you, my friend, and we'll close up shop again with the final words.
Well, ladies and gents, Final Four weekend is here. Saturday is the 2 games, and then Monday we get the championship game. A little UFL action going on too. MLB is back in full swing. NASCAR is off this weekend because we believe in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else really going on. NHL's kind of tapering down. We're getting closer to playoffs. Same for the NBA. Yeah, so Easter Sunday is this weekend, whether if you're religious and celebrate that day, or if you're a pagan and you celebrate it for a bunny, whatever works. Um, Regardless, don't do what I did and evidently get too saucy and slice your finger. Um, I don't recommend doing that. That's not fun. I have to tell you the story about that. Is so we get there and like I'm trying to take off the smear on a bedroom closet door because we need to paint the doors. And this mirror has been on this door for a long time because we're remodeling a family member's house that we're going to be moving into and all that stuff. And I went to use like a scraper type tool to get in between the mirror and the tape that it's on. It's on double-sided tape, and this is very strong. So I'm trying to just get in the middle of that so I can get this mirror off. And my hand just slipped off that tool and like went right down the side of the mirror. And I instantly knew I cut it. I didn't know how bad, but I thought I like sliced up my ring, middle, and index finger pretty badly. So it started hurting, and then I just quickly found the first rag I had and just tourniqueted it kind of pretty tight. And saw a little blood spot on the ground, on the floor. So I was like, "Damn, that's not good." So I knew I cut it pretty good, and went to the ER. And luckily, they were like, "I don't think any stitches," because they were like, "All right, push your middle." They had my middle finger bent, and they were like, "All right, can you push it up? Can you straighten it? Because that would tell us if it's got some tendons and nerves messed up. If you can, which I could, then you're good. No stitches. Your tendons and nerves are fine." But it was a pretty good cut. The doctor that came in there did that little test, and then he kind of looked at it, and then he had me put my hand on my ground, or I had put a hand on the bed. And the wound is like right about here, like from one part of the knuckle all the way to the other side, like this way. Well, he proceeded. I went from about a 6-7 pain to about a 1 after the adrenaline wore off and I was relaxing. Well, he said, let's do this, let's do that, and let's just irritate the shit out of it. And that hurt. That was not fun. And then they put saline on it, and that was not fun again. But anyways.
Well, hey, at least you didn't bust your head open and have to get it stapled.
Believe me,
stapled shut.
That thought came in my head when I was like, I don't want stitches. And I was like, damn, I remember when James had to get a bunch of staples in his head. You bladed for the wrong reasons. So yeah, what I'm trying to get at, long story short, is don't spill the sauce. I spilled sauce. It was not good. You want to stir the sauce. You want to enjoy and divulge into the good sauce. So make y'all a good, nice pot of your best type of sauce, and then indulge, enjoy the hell out of it. Enjoy this weekend, and we will see you guys next Thursday night, same time, same channel, same place, same 2 cats. And with that being said, stay saucy, friends.
This is wrestling without the filter.